Hi guys, it's Tokyo, and I wanted to do a video about this buzzword of privilege. I think I did on one of my old channels. For those of you who may somewhat recognize me, I did a video on this topic. Now it's kind of out there about this whole white privilege thing, and I'm gonna even title this video that you know, white privilege is something that, number one, it's an American ideology. It's something that really exists only in America, and I'm going to, of course, explain that. And it's almost an American product. Um, it has no value, no real value outside of the U.S. And now I'm going to get more into that. You know, minorities seem to think that white people, simply because they are white, have this almost this credit card, have this sort of credit card of things that they can have, do, or be simply because they are white in other countries. Now, I'm not talking about. I understand that there's racism, but racism is different from privilege. Racism is different from privilege. A person can hate your race, but a person within that race can still have privilege. Do you understand what I'm saying? See, it gets very tricky. You really have to be careful. You really have to be careful. Um, but going back to white privilege, there's a lot of minorities who think that simply because you're white, your whiteness is a get out of jail free card around the world. Now, this idea is typically promoted by ethnic minorities who have not left the United States. Um, they do not have any Caucasian, European friends by any means. They have had very little direct access with European people or people from different countries, people who are different than them. This is sort of like a concocted and nurtured idea amongst ethnic minorities who feel as though, who congregate amongst themselves. Now, I'm not going to say that from what I've seen that a lot of Caucasians have not taken this idea and run with it and played with it and kind of, um, I don't want to say use it to their advantage, but have kind of, have not said, really, I got privilege? Well, have used it for something for their self-esteem. I've noticed that as well. But once you leave the United States, for instance, if you have white American or people who are white passing in the United States who may leave and go to different countries in Europe, they're leveled out. Why? Because the people in Europe, if you go to Germany, of course you're going to have Aryan or European people. And Germans don't even consider themselves European; they consider themselves German. So you have all these little nations. Speaking of Europe specifically, of people who are white, but they don't necessarily um, consider or I want to say consider, but define themselves being white. They define themselves by being the nation, the flag that's over their head, be it German, be it French, be it whatever. They're that first. And they are white or whatever, European second. And those are more words that outsiders, people who are outside of them, use to define them, but they define themselves as whatever flag, is above their head. That's most important. So you have someone white who goes, an American who goes to Germany. He's not going to be put up on a pedestal by German people. It doesn't work like that. Germans are going to pedestalize their own people first. And you, as another white person, you're going to be lower than them. But you can say, well, but I would still be beneath that white person, being a black person, being a such and such person. Not exactly. You can't really plan it, and I'll say that because if there's a lot of rules for it. For instance, that white person may be viewed as as the epitome of what an American is. If that German person doesn't like Americans, period, he may be American also. But that German person will dislike that white American more because psychologically he embodies the idea of what an American is more so than you do. By being dark skinned, he may look at you as an African. You just so happen to be born in America. Do you understand what I'm saying? So he will dislike you less if he so feels, as opposed to putting this other person up on a pedestal. Nationalism is real outside of the United States. Nationalism is real. It's something completely different than what happens in the States. And people really, and I know you don't really see this now. Actually, you do see emerging nationalism right now because it's the only thing that's going to save Europe. But as far as this whole white privilege thing, that's more of an American ideology. There's Europeans who have suffered. If you look at Eastern Europe, you've had Serbians going to war with these people, Russians going to war with these people, Russians taking these people's land, or there's been wars throughout Europe since the beginning that fought each other. They're all white people, according to, by American standards, they're all white people. What Germany did to Poland, Polish people are white. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, you know, uh, there's not a conducive and congruent ideology of, well, I'm white, so I'm going to treat you like this. That's, like I said, that's more of an American ideology. In other parts of the world, each nation is for themselves. You can even look at Asia. Asia's another great example. To us, they're all Asian people, but that's offensive to them. That's utterly offensive to them. It's offensive to call a Japanese person a Chinese person, a Chinese person a Korean person, and so forth and so forth. They all have their own nations. They all have their own flag, and that's what they're proud of. And they have contentions. A lot of that is changing, and if people aren't awake, they don't know that finally. And it's very quite interesting that now you have Shinzo Abe and the leader of South Korea, and you have the leader of China all sitting down together, and that's like a first in history. You guys need to pay attention. That is major when you have the big heads of Asia, of these countries, sitting in one room willing to talk to each other. That is extremely massive, and they're trying to form a summit or a group, a coalition. That is major. That's absolutely major. But to go to show you that there's so much animosity and hostility between all of these nations, and they all look alike. So this whole, and it's the same in Europe. It's the same thing. So just to think that just because you're white or you're fair skinned, that you have this global privilege. At the very base of humanity is survival. People will take you out if need be, if it means that they get to breathe and eat another day. If you've been to these different countries, if you've traveled at all, you'll you'll hear about all these countries that don't like each other, and you may even confuse some of them. In your very early travel days, you may even say, "Oh, well, I thought this person is this person. I thought this person is that person." Well, the Serbs may not like these people. The Russians may not like these people. The Yugoslavians may not like these people. The Poles may not like these people, and it goes on and on. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And these are all white people, and they will not treat each other. They're all white, and they will not treat each other higher or better or whatever. And you being an American or a Westerner, you will have a lot of privileges that, oh, I can only speak, I'm not a Brit, but, England is a first world country, so, just on that line, but you will have a lot of advantages that even people from a lot of those other countries will not have. And you can be an ethnic person. Now, this is a short video and it's going to get cut off, but make this a part one about privilege. This is an American idea. And when you leave America, even if you're white, and a lot of white people know this is just, I don't know, I think they just really look at you crazy. Or a lot of white people that I've spoken with in the States are actually offended by this because they've had hard lives. They've actually had hard lives, difficult lives, and had nothing handed to them. But to be told that, you're more privileged, or less privileged than they are, when actually you may make more money than them. There's just a whole lot to this. And so many people buy into this idea that I'm automatically at the bottom foot of the world, and people throw this world thing around. And it's always someone who has no passport, who has not traveled. They throw this world thing around. We're at the world, the world. You don't know what's happening in the world. You don't know. It's so complex. Once you get out of the States, the life is so complex, and there's so many intricate details that determine so much. I'm gonna have to do a few more videos to this, like a part 2, a part 3, a part 4, a part 5, whatever. But this whole privilege thing, there's beauty privilege, there's money privilege, there's thin privilege, there is bicultural privilege. There's privilege for just the type of experience we've had. There's unique privilege. There's privileges that I have just for looking unique that your average blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman would not have. But simply because I look like this, there's some things, or there's some more doors that would be open to me as opposed to her, because she would be stereotypically in a particular country considered the norm. So it's very tricky, and people really hang their lives up on this privilege thing, and it just doesn't fly. It really just doesn't fly in so many cases. And it's really a psychological suicide to base and create a whole life and world based upon being a bastard wheel. So like I said, I'm going to get into this a lot more because it's really about dealing with the psyche of a lot of people in America. And, we're watching you as Americans abroad. We're watching you. We're watching you. We're just watching what's going on. And face palm to death. Just face palm, face palm, face palm. What's going on there. But anyway, I'm going to do a few more videos on this. You can comment, rate, and subscribe, and I'll see you later.